day 12? Day 12, inshallah. Today, inshallah, we will talk about the verse number 19. Bismillah, alhamdulillah. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, أَوَلَمْ يَرَوْا إِلَى الطَّيْرِ فَوْقَهُمْ صَافَّاتٍ وَيَقْبِضْنَ مَا يُمْسِكُهُنَّ إِلَّا الرَّحْمَنِ إِنَّهُ بِكُلِّ شَيْءٍ بَصِيرٌ. After Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in Surah al-Mulk describes multiple manifestation of His qudra, of His attribute of al-Qadir, the manifestation of it, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala invited the people to look and ponder over the universe that Allah has created, the skies that are layered upon one another, and how there is nothing inconsistent. Everything is coherent. Everything is working according to its own organized fashion. And there is no inconsistency. Therefore, logical reasoning is that a person believes in the creator of this entire universe. Then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentioned those who reject, what kind of punishment they will receive on the day of judgment. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions that those who have fear of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, for them there is maghfirah, forgiveness, and a great reward. In the subsequent verses, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions that two indications of alludes towards two forms of punishment that we've been discussing for a couple days. The first one was that if for the transgressors, the earth could be made to swallow them. And that was the punishment that was received by Qaroon. Qaroon was sunk into the earth along with his palace and all the wealth that he possessed. So this is something that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala can do as a punishment for the people who reject Allah and transgress. Another form of punishment that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala alludes to that we discussed yesterday was the frigid storm of wind. The frigid storm of wind. Extremely cold and very loud, screaming. And that adhab, that punishment was sent upon the people of Ad. So after all of these things, when a person understands, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala leaves an opening. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala leaves an opening for the people to come back to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And that is the opening in verse number 19. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, أَوَلَمْ يَرَوْا إِلَى الطَّيْرِ فَوْقَهُمْ. Do you not see, have you not seen the bird that hovers above you, that flies up over you, صَافَّاتٍ وَيَقْبِضْنَ. The wings of these birds are spread wide open over you, and sometimes they fold these wings, right? So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is describing how the birds, they fly. Do you not look at them? How are they flying and hovering in the air? What is keeping them in the air? مَا يُمْسِكُهُنَّ إِلَّا الرَّحْمَنِ. Nothing keeps them in the air except the most merciful. You think the bird has the capability of staying in the air, flying? إِنَّهُ بِكُلِّ شَيْءٍ بَصِيرٍ. Indeed, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is all watching. Hashim, can you let the sisters know that they need to quiet down a little bit, please? And we can close the door. Inshallah. Jazakallah. We need the youth to be cleared from the hallway, please. Everybody needs to be in the inside. The hallway needs to be clear. Jazakumullah khair. The hallway needs to be clear. Jazakumullah khair. So in this verse number 19, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is appealing to the people's, again, rational thinking. Again, rational thinking. The first rational thinking was, do you not see the skies above you? And now Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is appealing to another rational argument, that is, do you not see the birds that are hovering and flying above you? Who is keeping these birds floating in the air? And sometimes they have the birds have their wings spread out, other times they have the wings folded into their body, right? And they're gliding, they're hovering, they're going up and down into the air with different variation of speeds. Each bird has a different form of hunting practice and flight and the height that they fly, right? All of these different variations. Who is keeping all of that, right? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, مَا يُمْسِكُهُنَّ إِلَّا الرَّحْمَنِ. It's the merciful one, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, who is making sure that happens. إِنَّهُ بِكُلِّ شَيْءٍ بَصِيرٍ. Indeed, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is all watching. Right? Now, there's so much to talk about different birds, but because we don't have that much time, if we only look at the pigeons, what kind of creation this is. You think about just reflect over the existence of the pigeons as a creation of Allah. We know that this cannot come on its own. It's not by chance. It's not by coincidence. There is the creator behind the pigeon. There is the fashioner behind the pigeon, right? What is so special about the pigeons? Humanity has been using pigeons for delivering messages over a large span of lands, right? And pigeon, you put the letter into the feet of attach it to the feet of the pigeon, and the pigeon exactly knows where this needs to be delivered. How does the pigeon know? Back in the days, people used to send the militaries used to send the messages to their generals about updates regarding the battles, right? And the governors used to send messages to the capital, right? This was the messenger, post office. The pigeon was the post office, the postman, yeah? Or you call it postbird, subhanAllah, right? Before the Twitter existed, yeah? So this is how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created. What is this smartness and intellect that pigeon possess, that it was able to accomplish deliver these messages in trust, right? If you look at the pigeon, scholars, the scientists, they used to think before that there's something called, in the beak of the pigeon, there's iron-rich beaks, okay? And they used to think, this was hypothesis, that because of the iron beaks, they are able to navigate the electromagnetic waves of the earth. They are able to navigate based on the electromagnetic waves because their beaks are made of iron-rich cells. But 2 years ago, in 2012, in May 2012, scientists actually discovered that the pigeons, they have brain stems. Has nothing to do with the beak. They have brain stems that are associated with their inner ear, right, that are activated whenever the pigeon comes across magnetic waves. Well, Earth has a magnetic wave, yeah, that's how we have North Pole, South Pole. When you have the magnets, the north side and the south side, it repels, but if it's opposite, then it attaches. So Earth also has magnetic waves. Now the pigeons, they have these cells, brain stem cells inside their inner ears that are activated automatically when they are in close contact of magnetic waves. Dr. David Dickman, he said the brain cells signal the direction, intensity, and polarity of the Earth's magnetic field. These signals could be used like a GPS. So these signals that are inside the air, brain stem cells, they are acting as a GPS for the pigeon. That's how pigeons are able to navigate. That's how pigeons are able to navigate. Who put that GPS system inside the pigeon? It can be coincidence. Can it be by chance? Can it just somehow how the birds decided that, hey, we're missing out on the GPS system. Let's evolve ourselves to become a category of bird that possesses GPS. Doesn't make sense. Allah is the creator. There is the creator who is right? Different variations of bird. All of this leads us to the existence of the Creator. All of this should lead us to recognition that we have our Creator, and therefore He's only one, and we have to worship alone, only Him. There is no deity besides Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala worthy of our worship and adoration. إِنَّهُ بِكُلِّ شَيْءٍ بَصِيرٌ. He is ever watchful over everything. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is watchful over everything. He is watchful over what we are doing, what we believe, what we have in our hearts, what we have in our mind. Allah is watchful over all. Because He is al-Basir. That's one of the noble attributes of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This one verse number 19, establishes some of the noble attributes of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and disproves and rejects some of the misguided beliefs of humanity. There are people still on earth who believe that they believe in Allah, they believe in the God, the Creator. They do not believe in multiple gods, they believe in one God, but they say that God created the universe, but now He does not have any interference with it. He does not maintain it or sustain it. He created the laws and the universe is operating based on the laws. God is not interfering. These are called theists. You know the founding fathers of the United States? What religion did they follow? What religion did the founding fathers follow of the United States? They were not Christians. They were theists. They believed that God exists. They believed one God exists, but then they said He has no interference with the world. So they believed in theistic religion. And that's why they were open to other religions as well. Thomas Jefferson and other people were open to other religions coming into the United States and preaching. Subhanallah. So this is the Tawheed. In this verse, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying that look at these birds that are flying and hovering over the sky. They cannot do this on their own. This is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that is managing them to be in the sky. This shows that Allah is actively engaged with taking care of His creation. Rejects theistic theology. Right? Allah is actively maintaining. Allah is actively providing. Allah is actively protecting. Allah is actively giving and taking. Allah did not create the universe and left it and abandoned it. No, Allah is actively looking at it. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, right? مَا يُمْسِكُهُنَّ إِلَّا الرَّحْمَنِ إِنَّهُ بِكُلِّ شَيْءٍ بَصِيرٌ. He's all watching. He's all watchful. He's actively engaged with the creation that He has created. There is no absence of God after the creation. Right? So this verse, the entire Surah al-Mulk is the description and definition of Tawheed. And then this verse alone also further establishes a different aspect of Tawheed and different aspects of Tawheed. Allah is actively engaged with His creation, keeping and maintaining and sustaining it. Therefore, do you not see this? Once you see this, once you recognize it, then logical reasoning is that you submit yourself to your Creator. Then logical conclusion is that you submit yourself to your Creator, who is maintaining all of this for you and has subjugated the earth for you. There is no reason to rebel and transgress against Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Dear brothers and sisters, Surah al-Mulk is a beautiful surah, right? We learn about the virtues of the surah, how the surah becomes an intercessor in the grave, and how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala establishes His different manifestation of His Qudrah, al-Qadir, the attribute of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. When we internalize and understand this, it increases our tawheed. It increases our belief in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It increases us in monotheism, right? And when we have a better understanding of our Creator, and we recognize that, then it becomes easier for us to worship Him. That's the whole point of this, right? To build this khashiyah, to build this taqwa of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Ma'arifah and recognition of our Creator. Once we understand our Creator, it becomes easier for us to worship Him. Because we know what we are worshiping, who we are worshiping. Who He is. He's al-Basir, all watchful. He's al-Alim, all knowing. He's al-Qadir, all powerful. Right? He's al-RaHmān, the most merciful. Right? He knows what is in the deepest heart of you, in the depth of your heart. He knows that all. Subhanallah. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's Qudrah, al-Qadir, He's al-Aziz, the most noble, al-Ghafur, the most forgiving. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is describing His different noble attributes so that we understand Him. And when we understand Him, it becomes easier for us to obey Him and worship Him, and it becomes easier for us to accept the message that He has sent upon His prophets and messengers. Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon him, being the last and final messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Right? Inshallah, with this we will conclude, and tomorrow we will begin verse number 20 and 21, inshallah ta'ala. One thing I want to remind is, look at how the pattern of Surah al-Mulk is. First there's a rational argument Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives, then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala admonishes the disbelievers who reject Allah and reject this logical conclusion. Then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala leaves an opening. Then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala leaves opening for the people to come back to Him. And then there's another transition to another topic. Another topic starts again, logical reasoning. Then there is Allah, punishment for those who reject. And then there is opening left to turn back to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. SubhanAllah, there is such a beautiful pattern in Surah al-Mulk. This is the second or third instance in which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is doing this. This is an opening again. An appeal to logical reasoning, then the adab is going to be mentioned, and then there is going to be a glad tidings for those who repent and turn back to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Inshallah. We will continue from verse number 20 tomorrow. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.